Electricity Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa yesterday apologized for Eskom's implementation of Stage 6 load shedding after losing 5 units. For more on what the Eskom future holds lead into the festive season and beyond, we're joined by Worldwide Industrial and System Engineers Managing Director Mohammed Ali. Mohammed, appreciate your time this evening. Now, what challenges do businesses commonly face when striving to become more energy efficient, particularly in environments with dependencies on the national electricity providers? Mohammed, you appear to be muted. Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now? I can hear you loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
All right, thank you. So I think, relating to your question with regards to what is the biggest factor right now when it comes to energy efficiency, and I think the cost. Companies that are alluding to looking at redundant or secondary options to be able to mitigate the risk associated with the challenges that load shedding bring. That's the cost of installing an inverter, a cost of installing a diesel generator, getting the diesel to your particular place where you actually either manufacturing or providing a service. That in turn brings the cost up, because now your cost per unit, what you had planned for the consumer, now that becomes a huge challenge, because now purchasing a product, what you were initially paying maybe 15 Rand for, you may now need to pay 17 Rand for, because there is a cost associated with embedding the redundant elements or sources of energy that the companies need to be able to embed into their processes because of the challenges of the energy constraints that we're suffering from on a day-to-day basis.
Now, according to your observations, which industries have the most pressing energy efficient needs, and what specific challenges make them stand out in the context of energy efficiency?
I think in my experience, what I've seen is companies that are in the telecommunications sector or data centers, and that's your colocation facilities, because what they do is they're selling internet uptime. So you need to be always connected. So data centers, generally there's a nice big building where they supply you with power to be ensuring that your servers, from a heating, ventilation and air conditioning perspective, is always keeping your servers cooled at the respective temperature. So what ideally would happen, in my opinion, is that those particular industries have invested heavily in solar farms, in making sure they have large amounts of inverters, and they have mechanism systems that can be able to, in an event where load shedding takes place, they can quickly have their uninterrupted power supply, move into the generator, and perhaps even go into either alternative gas or even looking at solar. I think in the telecommunication industry and the data centers have done very well to become energy efficient. However, the manufacturing industries are now slowly picking back off this, because they now cannot have the risk associated with having downtime. Because when you have downtime, there's a lot of cost associated with resources being down, and the uptime to get things back up is significantly much higher. So I think the industries that are taking the lead in energy efficiency is primarily the telecommunication, mining, because they can't take a risk associated with downtime, and obviously the data centers and some manufacturing industries.
ISO certification is one of your areas of proficiency, and the 50001/2018 is a key standard for implementing an effective energy management system. Are there other standards that businesses can leverage to enhance energy efficiency, and how do these standards contribute to building a sustainable energy management system?
I think this is a very important question. When we go out as consumers to purchase a product, we are dependent on the reliability. We determine on the credibility of that product. Now, when you're purchasing an inverter, you are looking for some sort of SABS standard or national standard that it's being regulated to, so that you know as a consumer, if you're purchasing an inverter, if you're purchasing solar panels, that they're actually safe for usage. And other standards around the world that have been embedded for us as organizations to implement, to ensure that the consumers feel confident, are not really embedded in our procurement processes, nor do people in South Africa understand this. For example, there's a national standard, SANS 474 or NRS 057, for purchasing smart meters. There is a national standard, SANS, South African National Standard 1041 or 1042, This is for when purchasing your local inverter or solar panels, that the organizations that are manufacturing these need to conform and comply to, which allows me as the consumer confidence that this approval gives me an indication that it won't cause a fire, etc. Now, energy management system, the ISO 50001 looks at the whole life cycle of this in terms of all the key ingredients and components that make up the final product, and that each component that's getting into providing you with an effective energy efficiency system, they're following national standards or international standards, European standards. I mean, if you think about it, when we have, let's say, organizations like City Power, they are purchasing transformers, or Eskom is purchasing transformers. Are they purchasing them in accordance to the correct international standards like IEC 60076? Or are we going to have another process situation where we're going to have trains that do not fit our ecosystems just on the basis that we did not have basic procurement standards or engineering standards in play?
Now, South Africa offers businesses extremely challenging environments. What strategies do businesses employ to navigate obstacles in becoming more energy efficient, especially when dependent on national electricity providers?
Yeah, so my suggestion would be deal with what you have right now. So firstly, my first step would be to install a smart meter. Ensure that your smart meter or your energy smart meter is nationally accredited to a standards body like SANS 474. And that smart meter will allow you to understand your consumption, your energy consumption, and which assets contribute towards the most significant amount of energy usage. This could be when you have a smart meter, you can now be able to understand. It's some like going when you're going to the gym. If you're going to the gym, you want to know exactly how many calories you've intake through the day and how many do you need to be able to weigh off through your exercise regime. So the same way, your smart meter will indicate to you where your sources of energy is coming, what is being used most in your household or in your specific industry or your manufacturing process. So you can say it could be, for example, 60% could be towards your heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, maybe at 10% towards your appliances. So you can now understand exactly where your energy is being pushed through. And once you understand that, that's when you start investing in alternative energy solutions, like perhaps a solar to manage your particular heating, ventilation, air conditioning, which is more towards renewable energy. You're looking at your uninterrupted power supply to be able to come in, like your inverters. You're looking at generators. So then you can manage your energy expectation from your sources to ensure you're continuously kept up so that you can provide the necessary services on a day-to-day basis.
So what about businesses that are hesitant to invest in energy efficiency? You know, what potential consequences or risks should they consider, both in terms of operational efficiency and meeting regulatory requirements?
I think economics 101, demand and supply. So if I'm a patient that's going to, let's say, for example, a dentist, and I rock up at the dentist at an appointment at 10 o'clock, and there's an unscheduled load shedding that occurs. Now, me as the patient that's going into this dentist, I'll be very unhappy because I cannot be given the service. I've taken leave for a significant period of time, and the service cannot be offered to me because of load shedding. Now, in my mind, I am thinking that the dentist needs to have secondary conditions or redundancies in place. And if they don't, then I will opt as a consumer to go to the next person. And that's what the biggest risk is. There's a lot of risk associated with consumers now looking to be able to see that, do you have redundancy in place? If there's load shedding, can we still continue with our meeting? Can you have uptime? Can you provide the service? And if you cannot, then I'll go somewhere else, even though it's more expensive, because I would feel that the need that I need right now is being done. When it comes to the regulatory body, in terms of installing all these solar panels and all these inverters and generators, the biggest risk is we don't have a procurement standard. We don't have a standard where we're asking the specific providers to align to the national or international standards. So we can get substandard products just on the criteria of price. And the risk is when we choose the cheaper products that don't meet our national standards, that's when safety can compromise. You can compromise the safety of your household. You can compromise the safety of your employees in your organization. And I think that risk has not been enforced. And we're not taking accountability seriously when it comes to the substandard products that are coming from overseas into the South African market. And following so, we're not following the international standards in our organizations, and that results in substandard work, substandard quality, and substandard roads and, telecommunication. Exactly.
Mohammed, a lot of this is easier said than done. Now, given the challenges presented by load shedding in South Africa, we're at stage 6 at the moment, how can businesses, especially SMEs, adapt and implement energy-efficient practices to mitigate the impact of unreliable power supplies?
Very difficult. It all comes out with your culture. So, for example, I always say when it comes to energy initiatives, it's all about culture. So if I am brought up at home where I am told that, look, if you're coming down for supper and you don't switch off the light in your house, you would get a nice big tongue lashing. Now, in an event I don't do that, there's consequence management in place where my parents would then tell me, because of what you've done and you've not switched off the light, they might maybe give me a slap on the wrist. Now, we try and bring that culture into the working world. So the energy initiatives are, we try and communicate to all our employees that switching off electricity when we don't need them. We put posters up to communicate the importance of switching off lights. Now, when they do not follow those standards, it becomes costly for organizations. So now what they want to do is they want to manage that behavior. So they install sensor lighting. So when there's no one in the room, now the sensors switch off. And that's a huge cost. That cost, someone has to still pay for it, which at the end is the consumer. So in my opinion, it begins with an entire cultural change. And change management is difficult. I mean, I can talk about, consumers maybe 15 to 20 years ago, or even 25 years ago, we all used Kodak. We used the yellow pages. Everyone knows what a 3310 or 6110 is. And now today, who are using those services? So we need to adapt to change quite quickly, and we need to implement it by starting off with the culture in our organization to understand the small little elements where Eskom puts up a particular advert to say you're consuming too much energy where you're not required, please reduce. I think it starts there before you can start installing all the equipment and the necessary tools to be able to become more energy efficient.
Mohammed Ali, appreciate your time this evening, and he's the Managing Director of Worldwide Industrial and Systems Engineers.